Hello friends and welcome. I'm Sarah Liz and I am back with a new video. This is Technique Thursday. We're going to make a shaker card that goes to the edge of your card. I love this so much, and we're featuring a Stamptember exclusive stamp set. If you are unfamiliar with Stamptember, there are new exclusive releases out all month long. This one is from Trinity Stamps, but my friends, you can do this technique with any supplies you may already have. I'm going to start by making a background, and I'm using the abstract scratch background from Trinity. It's one of my all-time favorites. It's just this really great hatched pattern, and this is going to be pretty subtle. I'm stamping some Versamark embossing ink on some light blue cardstock, and I'm going to go all over that. I actually stamped in white as well, but in the end, you can't tell that I did that. So we're just going to pretend like I didn't. No one needs to know. Then I'm using some Icicle's embossing powder from Pink and Maine. This is a clear embossing powder with a little bit of glitter in it. I love that once you heat set it, that glitter isn't rubbing off. It just gives a little bit of sparkle and shine. The places where we have that embossing powder get a little bit darker, right? And actually I overheated mine a little bit, so it's even darker than it would maybe normally be. To bring out that pattern a little extra, I'm bringing in my darkest teal ink from Simon Says Stamp, and I'm going to come up from the bottom. If I don't want to have to use multiple colors of ink, the brush makes a huge difference. So this is a large, fluffy blending brushes. The bristles are not super densely packed, and that means I can get darker color at the bottom and fade into nothing midway up the card, and it's really easy, and I don't have to be like a champion, super duper, very skilled ink blender. We're going to add a striped accent to our card. This design element was super popular when I came back to card making a number of years ago, and I tell you what, I am still a sucker for it. I really only need about a 1-inch strip, so I just stamped that and then I'll set it aside. It's a pigment ink, so I want to let it dry. Then I'm going to use the Rainbow Shaker die set from Trinity, and I'm cutting out the largest rainbow. It cut both the hole that is now in my blue panel and the individual rainbow stripes that you can see above. So I have adhered my blue panel to a white panel using some removable adhesive. I want to be able to pick this up later, but it gives me a frame for adding in all of my individual bows. I'm just going to add glue onto, it's actually my card base. I'm going to figure out later that I needed a panel, not the card base. But in the meantime, I find it easier to add glue into that big open area. It's a little faster, less likely to make a mess for me. And I'm just butting them up right against each other. They're half circles. So actually, this is pretty forgiving. If they don't all line up perfectly down at the bottom, it's going to be fine because that panel in front is going to cover anything that isn't perfectly even. I'll press that flat, and then I'm going to flip it over and trim off the excess parts of the rainbows. I just sort of glide my scissors right along the edge of my card. It's actually a little bit easier because it's a card base. It's too thick, but just be careful if you're using a single panel. I cut off a 1/2 inch from the left-hand side of this front panel, and now I'm adding some double-sided adhesive tape. I'm going to use some recycled packaging to create our shaker, and I find a double-sided tape works best here. Though if you use wet glue, just be patient with it. Let it set up and get a little bit tacky before you add the acetate. So I'm going to remove all of that backing paper so that the adhesive tape is exposed. And this was just some stamp packaging or die packaging, and I cut a piece that's big enough to cover the opening, and then it probably extends about 2 inches to the left. Then on my white panel, I cut that down too. Now it's just a panel and not a whole card base. I'm going to add on my stripes. The stripes are a little taller than the panel at this point because, again, I had to sort of cut off that score line. But by the time we're done, you're not going to be able to tell. To create my shaker, I'm using 2mm foam tape, and I actually have 2 strips of it here. That's fine. You could use just one. I've removed the backing paper from both sides so that I can curl it right around the edge of that rainbow. And I'm going to clip that off. Anywhere I am adding foam tape, I'm making sure it touches the rest of the foam tape. But also then on this left edge, as it's flipped over on the left, it is as close to the edge of the card as I can get because I need that acetate, that packaging to butt right up against it, so I'm not going to lose my shaker bits. Once I get the rainbow completely outlined and then I get that left edge taken care of, the rest of this is just filling in. I'm an over adheser and I like it to look pretty from the side. You don't have to do that, but make sure you have enough foam tape that if someone's holding it tightly, it's not going to crumple. So here you can see all of my little places where I've added foam. You do what you got to do. Once all of that is off of there, I'm going to add a little bit of glue on top of all of that foam tape so I have wiggle room to make sure I get this lined up just perfectly. Remember, I trimmed off a little bit at the top of the white panel that has our rainbow on it because it originally was a card base. And then this blue panel is not a full A2. It is 3 3/4 of an inch. And so I want to grab the corner that is the bottom right when you're looking at the card from the front. Okay, so my two fingers, my pointer finger and thumb, have that bottom right corner, and I'm tucking my white panel on top of it. I haven't pressed tightly yet because the foam tape adhesive is going to grab right away. But all that liquid glue lets it hydroplane for just a minute so I can wiggle it. Make sure my rainbow is lined up perfectly, my edges are lined up perfectly, and then my card base is ready to go. I still have my acetate open on the right-hand side so I can add in my shaker mix. I am using the new polished flat sequins from Trinity stamps, and they come in an entire rainbow of colors. I thought it was perfect here. So I have polished pistachio, polished pale magenta, amethyst, aquamarine, and pineapple. And actually I have about twice as many as I need here, so I'll probably make a second card. To add them in, it actually worked best to flip this over and just let them slide down that acetate instead of trying to wedge the triangle of my tray in there. But you'll see once I get them all in there, it's covering up a ton of our rainbow, which was too much for me. So I'm going to take some back out. And once I like where it's at, I'm going to go ahead and flip this over and add some more of that double-sided tape. I'm going to do 2 lines of it. One is probably fine. It's fine. How about you? Do you over adhese? Let me know. I have removed the backing paper from all that, and then I'm going to pull this fairly tightly. I don't want any of our sequins leaking out the side, and I'm going to adhere it to the back. You can trim away any of that excess acetate if you'd like. Instead of a cloud on our rainbow, I am adding this lovely little gnome. So this is from that Stamptember exclusive stamp set. I've done Stamptember releases for a couple of years. This is the first time they sent me the dies too. I am so excited. He coordinates with my rainbow. I use the same markers to color them both in, but certainly you could cut that from colored cardstock instead. Then I'm going to use one of the sub sentiments that's in that set as well. In the end, our card is going to say celebrate. It's an extra sprinkles kind of day, which is a wonderful, like all-purpose card. But we also have there's gnome one sweeter than you and make a wish. So I'm going to get my celebrate from the Simply Sentimental Celebrate. Trinity has a ton of sets like this where there's like one big word that you get in a bunch of big sizes and different fonts. And then the coordinating die set has dies that will cut out those large stamped words, or you can die cut out the letters. And so that's what I did here. To make sure I got them lined up correctly, I cut out the shadow layer and then I layered on top the word die that cuts out the letters. So I have this negative piece and I taped it to a piece of white shimmer cardstock just to get everything lined up. Most of the time I can eyeball this stuff, but it was late. It was past my bedtime. And so I was like, this is going to be easier. If you're going to do it this way, be patient. Let your glue dry before you try to very gently remove that negative piece. I didn't run into big problems, but I will say that green E came right off. I just added more glue and glued him back on. Not a big deal, but patience, my friends. So once it's all done, I am going to go ahead and add this onto a black shadow layer. Because we have that black and white stripe on the left-hand column, I liked the idea of bringing in more of that contrast, that pop in here. A lot of the card is very pastel, very light and bright. And so just a few of these darker accents, I think, can really bring an extra layer of dimension onto the card. I'm going to add a little glimmer brush or glitter brush from scrapbook.com here. I love these. I have them in most of the colors. I'm about to round out my collection though. And I can't wait. Then I'm going to go ahead and take our sub sentiment, and that's also going to get that same drop shadow. As a general rule, my shadow, like the black layer, is going to be down and to the right, and I try to do it the same way every time. Otherwise, I might end up with like the Celebrate down and to the right and this guy up and to the left, and like who knows what I'm doing. My brain can only handle so many things. So that's my trick to make sure I get them all pretty even. And I'm just going to adhere these down with wet glue. If I didn't already have that foam tape on the edge of the shaker, then I might add these with foam tape. You certainly could create that edge shaker by just wrapping the acetate and using double-sided adhesive, and so there wasn't foam in the middle, but your shaker bits shake better this way when you get that little bit of lift. I added our panel onto a card base, and that finishes everything up. We have great shine, great texture, this beautiful shaker. My friends, I hope this is a new technique for you, something that you'll give a try. I've linked all of the supplies below. Thank you so much for spending your time with me, and I will see you next time.